In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbartis, Lizzie Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies and knights, to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Russell Guest, and joining me today from a foot away from me, right here in the Steel City of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is my good friend and co-host, Mr. Chad Robinson. How you doing?
I mean, it's not even a foot. I am practically in Russell's lap here in my office.
Well, it is your time of year, Chad. It's Christmas time. So,
yes. Famed Christmas lover.
You said you were banned from all Christmas episodes, and you found a loophole. You found a loophole today. You found your way into the Christmas spirit. So, but also finding his way onto the show. We are excited here. We have coming to you for the third time. This is our most frequented British guest here to join the show here. From Dudley, England, across the pond, a man with massive movie collection beyond your imagination.
Yeah, Shetty Mercury.
Yes, Mr. Dan Cook himself. How you doing, sir?
I'm very good. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for having me once again. Very grateful.
I think Chad and Dan are two peas in the pod. This is the longest pod. It spans the Atlantic Ocean, but you guys have terrific chemistry. So this is your kind of Christmas spirit, and I'm happy to be along for the ride.
Absolutely.
So speaking of Christmas, what is a Christmas ornament? Could be from your childhood, could be currently. What is your favorite Christmas ornament, Dan?
Ooh, that's a good question. My favorite Christmas ornament will probably have to be a bauble that you put on your Christmas tree that belongs to my late father. He gave it to us when we were kids, and we keep that now in our. He died when I was 10, so it's sort of a keeping of the past, of remembrance. So that's a present one. If not, the most recent thing that my wife got for me is this, which I'm very happy with. I don't know if Christmas movie lovers are
a glass.
The
moose?
Wally World.
Wally World.
That's very nice.
Yes. So
Chad, there's a lot of nostalgia and good tidings going. Let's keep it rolling. I'm going to pass it to you.
I have a Snoopy. He's bundled up and going like downhill slalom skiing. This is my favorite ornament from my childhood. It was passed on to me, so I don't know why, but I just have an attachment to this little Snoopy ornament.
Snoopy is very Christmas, for sure. So I'm going to go with not Christmas, but it comes from a Happy Meal of all places, but I have a Gus and Jacques from Cinderella. And as a kid, they only came out at Christmas time, and I thought they were so adorable. They are about the size they can fit in your shirt pocket. They are so cute, and they were just Christmas companions, and I would carry them around the house even as a small kid, and I really liked them. And Grant likes them too now. So
nice.
So
that's nice.
It's one of those special. They come back. There's nothing Christmassy about them. They don't have like a little Christmas present or Christmas hats, but to me, it's Christmassy. So
fair enough.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, go figure. I grew up to host a nerdy podcast about movies. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. What is the last movie you saw, Dan?
The last movie I watched was Black Christmas for today. So I watched it last night. Before that, I've started to do a retrospective of different directors. And the first one that came up on my list was George A. Romero, who did Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. And weirdly enough, I watched Night of the Living Dead 2 nights ago. And then I thought, I should also add in the remakes to this. So the next film I would be watching would be Night of the Living Dead 1990, directed by Tom Savini, which starred Tony Todd, who died yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's very strange how those kind of coincidences linked up. So yes, it would have been the before Black Christmas. It would have either been Night of the Living Dead or Godzilla -1 Color on Netflix. I can't remember which one. It would have been one of those two.
One.
Well, Night of the Living Dead takes place not so far from Pittsburgh. It's not obviously in Pittsburgh proper, but
yes,
not far from here. So, Chad, how about you? What's the last movie you saw?
Well, I changed it up. It was going to be off of both of your stunning letterbox recommendations. Jaws 3D. Both.
I didn't recommend that.
Russell and Dan both have.
You certainly didn't recommend that either.
5-star movie. Somehow I hadn't seen it. And
wait, I don't have it as 5 stars.
You do not. This is a joke that is clearly not landing. But yes, it's absolutely a 1.5-star movie. It's like Leah Thompson's in it. How bad could this be? And the answer is very bad.
Oh, it can be bad. It can be bad.
I did watch my latest one. It was a low budget indie movie. Russell had complained about seeing Hellfest, so there was a new movie called Haunted House, or not Haunted House, sorry, Haunt Season from 2024.
Okay.
It is low budget indie, but the kills are pretty cool. The setting is just haunted house workers, and there's a killer inside. I enjoyed it. It's one I think I will actually come back to around the Halloween season. It was a good time. So yeah,
I'm surprised it's not Sarah's Hallmark, Christmas.
Oh, she started. November 1st. This madness has started. Like before Mariah Carey hit that first note, this madness has started in my house, and I hate it.
Yes, we have a channel here called Christmas 24, which shows a lot of Hallmark Christmas movies. My wife is absolutely addicted to them.
Yeah.
So she's exactly the same. We watched one the other day called Christmas in Notting Hill. And it was awful. It was really bad.
Does it still work the same way in British type rom-coms of these genres? Because ours is always woman from New York or some other big city comes home to small country town and finds man that
usually the dad's been running a bakery or something, or like a jumper shop, and she has to take on the business and falls in love with someone. They're exactly the same ones that you'd get over in America.
All right, so it's like London.
My wife just loves them.
Hey, if it's don't broke,
no, they're all the ones from America. They're all American ones.
I'm sorry for that.
Oh no, my wife loves them, so I can't complain.
Well, I do like Christmas, but the last movie I saw has nothing to do with Christmas. It is the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man 2. This was Grant's first time watching it, so I mean, he hadn't seen Electro in a movie.
He still hasn't.
I feel like these movies go down better with Grant just enjoying them for the first time. Just more Spider-Man movies are always good for him, no matter who's in them or what's going on. So I feel like the second one is more of a letdown than the first one. But I like Spider-Man. There's worse things.
Yes. Yeah. Spider-Man 3.
I would take Spider-Man. I'd take Spider-Man 3 over Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh, I would too. There's certain moments in Spider-Man 3 which I think are some of the best in the Sam Raimi trilogy. Not a good film, but I think the creation of Sandman, when it's almost like a silent film, and he's in the what's it called, the like the molecular generator thing or whatever it is, and his body's completely turned to sand. I think that's a brilliant.
I have to resist myself from going into it, but I maintain if they had just taken cramming Venom into the third movie, you actually could have a pretty decent third movie.
I'm such a Venom fan, I can't forgive Spider-Man 3.
Well, they tried to cram it in when they ought not have given it. It just needed its own space.
And also
I agree with that.
Eric Foreman. Like, I love Topher Grace, but that is...
I really like that 70s show, so I might have a little bit of a forgiveness policy. But he's not what I imagine either. But anyway, what we need to do is cover today's movie, which is what, Chad? I think we already let the cat out of the bag.
Ho, ho, ho. It is Black Christmas.
All right. Wait, not White Christmas?
That actually messed with some people. So there was a debate of renaming this film because of the 70s style trends. And this is not a blaxploitation type film.
No, it is not. No. It is not.
It is not Blackula, which is a good time.
I've actually never seen that.
Oh, you should. It's fun.
the Blackula's a great time.
Yeah,
really good fun.
Well, as you alluded to, we're doing Black Christmas, 1974. Tiny little budget of $686,000, grosses $1.3 million in Canada, $4 million worldwide. So big return on a tiny budget. We've seen this before with horror movies, but it's certainly in full effect here. The film is financially successful, becoming the third highest grossing Canadian film of all time in 1974, behind The Apprenticeship of Dudley Kravitz and the French language Du Films on...
You took French. How are you failing at this?
I don't know. Nicht so good.
No bueno.
No bueno at all. Anyway, so the number one movie from this year is Blazing Saddles, which we had covered on episode 220, and it was a fun time. And IMDb gives Black Christmas a 7.1. The critics of Rotten Tomatoes are right about there at 68%. It was maligned a little more at the time, but it feels like that critics score looks a little higher than
it's coming up. Yeah,
I feel like it's gained clout with some more modern critics.
1.5 stars from Siskel at the time. Yeah,
Siskel
it was brutal.
hates things when he hates things.
He hated all horror movies pretty much.
Yeah, that's not
There's very, very few that he liked.
Yeah, audience score though is not far, or not way out of touch either at 76%. It is an award winner, Canadian Film Awards winner, 3 times over. Best sound editing for a feature, best performance by lead actress Margot Kidder, best Canadian Film Awards nominee for best feature film, and it's a Saturn Award nominee for best horror film, and an Edgar Allan Poe Awards nominee. I hadn't heard of this award until today. So the film only moderate box office success. So negative critical reception when originally released, as I mentioned. It went on to have a large cult following. So I think we can call this a cult classic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And to talk about what you're talking about with Siskel there, he said good actors taking on junk roles. So
I mean, we borderline had an Oscar or an Academy Award winning actor in this film too, so that would have been fun.
Yeah. Well, I think the cast is pretty talented, to be honest with you, but we'll get into this one. Dan, I'm guessing you have seen this movie. What was your first time to it, and what is it like coming back to it today?
Oh, I watch this film every year. This is in my top 5 films of all time. I adore this movie. I think it's a genuine horror masterpiece. I think we'll talk about its legacy later on, but I think it's such an important film in the history of the horror genre, and I really think it does deserve more credit. I love it, and I remember the first time I watched it, I'd seen a documentary on Bravo, which was the 100 Scariest Movie Moments, and there was a couple of people talking about Black Christmas, and I thought I'm gonna have to watch this, and I did, and it absolutely freaked me out. I watched it in my house with big earphones on a laptop, and from where I was sitting, I could see the attic hatch right above me. So I was absolutely freaking out. And ever since then, I've watched it once or twice at Christmas each year, and it just there are things about it which are dated, obviously, but I think it's a film that gets better with each watch. We talked the last time I was on. We talked about Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, and as each Halloween goes past, we see like a resurgence in love for that film. I'm hoping the same will happen with Black Christmas around Christmas time, because I think it is a horror film I think it's the best Christmas horror film ever. I can't think of anything that comes close to it.
We still need a couple of those Halloween cycles to get Russell on board on the Halloween 3 is a good movie.
It's not the worst Halloween movie.
Okay, you're coming up.
Yeah.
You're coming along.
Yeah, that would be
I'll get you there.
Halloween 5, very bad.
The 6 was the worst, right?
The 6 is pretty bad.
I think the 5 with the bumbling cops and stuff walking around the
the tuba noises.
The tuba noise that goes behind them, like the
making it an MTV reality type slaughter, though.
No, 3 is nowhere near that bad. Also, what was the one with Busta Rhymes?
That's Resurrection.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's like 7 or 8 at that point, right?
Yeah, I guess that would
6
be
had Paul
7.
Rudd.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll go through the Halloween rankings another time. But right now, this was my first time on this movie. But Chad, I guess you are a pro with this one yourself, though, right?
Yes, I watched this in college. It seemed an appropriate time to watch a movie about sorority or fraternity killings. Mm-hmm. So I have a 20-year history with this one. I revisit it from time to time, particularly when they've redone it twice, and I'll use air quotes that nobody can see, redone it, because they didn't redo it. They did something wildly different, especially with the latest one. The latest one, I think, missed on the messaging of everything this movie is trying to do. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating because our director, it's one of those Anchorman meme type things where Bob Clark says, "I wasn't trying to be political. I don't believe you." He knew exactly what he was doing. Yeah, he
knew what he was doing.
And this movie, especially because of recent rulings in the U.S. with Roe v. Wade, it's still relevant. It's still a topic, a hot topic. We cover uncomfortable topics of bodily autonomy, Abortion gets mentioned a lot. Two of the women in this cast had abortions. Olivia Hussey was due to a rape. So it's a deeply personal film, and it's become this feminist film that our director says he didn't mean to make. Again, I don't believe him. He treated his women differently. They were not. This isn't the sorority house massacre where there's a bunch of bare breasts and they're there to just die.
Yeah. No, I that's all true. And maybe you could do that just because of how you write and your sensibilities as a writer without meaning to. So I think you can write a story, and if it comes off as being, feminist, maybe your writer and director might be just more, that might be more who they are, period.
It's coming off a year after Roe v. Wade was decided in 1973. So I have to imagine that timing is intentional. Maybe it was just cultural zeitgeist bleeding in, and this was a hot topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still relevant today.
Well, absolutely, and especially with the events recently in America, watching it again was very, very powerful.
Nothing happened. I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing happened.
No, I won't.
We're very calm, orderly people.
Well, this is my first time, as I mentioned, with this one, so I will be with you guys as a new time viewer. I love my Christmas movies, and I like the warm holiday spirit. I enjoy a horror movie, so these are two genres I don't necessarily need bleeding unless it's like the Tim Burton Nightmare Before Christmas way. So I was aware of it. I knew that it existed, but I rarely reached for it because it wasn't like in Christmas. I don't necessarily need my horror in my Christmas, and I don't need my Christmas in my horror. But so I'm glad you guys introduced me to it. It's way more influential than I ever realized.
Yeah.
So I mean, I found myself at times sitting there going like, "Oh, well, this is kind of like When a Stranger Calls," but When a Stranger Calls did this thing better. Well, this is kind of like Halloween, but Halloween does it better. And you know what? It's before all of that stuff. So it means it's pushing the needle, it's influencing those things, and just because some of those things might have come back and perfected it later, this popularized a lot of things. And is particularly as I studied this, I gained a lot of respect for this movie.
I need a horror movie Christmas time playlist for you because we've got to get you. Better Watch Out is amazing.
You Better Watch Out is terrific.
I love that movie. Krampus is a lot of fun. It's stupid, but it's fun. You could even go down the less
eligible next year, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I could give you a whole list of Christmas horror movies because I love them. There's rare exports from Finland, which is fantastic.
I love that one. Yes.
There's a British film which came out in 2008 called The Children, which is about a virus. All these families come together in a big country house in the middle of England, and this virus breaks out, which affects the kids, and they go completely psycho on their parents.
I don't know that one.
That's set at Christmas time. Yeah, The Children. That's really good.
And
does it have a big city woman going and meeting a Midwestern nice guy? And
I'm not going to say anything about that. No. It's a good film. That is Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984. Yes. Which I think at one point was going to be called Black Christmas, or was going to be
that was our U.S. title, yeah.
So yeah, there's
people
and Gremlins and things like that. It's all
Gremlins,
good fun.
Yes.
Yeah,
I feel like Gremlins is fun enough to be like I'm okay.
Krampus is fun enough for Christmas.
Yeah, Krampus is fun.
Yeah,
we'll get you there.
Yeah, maybe you will. Maybe
Jaws of Revenge is a Christmas film.
Oh,
that is better than 3D, by the way.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Fair.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Michael Caine.
One good actor alone puts it over.
After Michael Caine's comments, it's like, okay, Jaws 3D has to be better. Nope.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Jaws 4, it's like Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. I prefer Batman and Robin because at least you can laugh at that. Batman Forever is just boring.
It's fair, yes.
One of our co-hosts, who's not on the show with us, their favorite Batman is Val Kilmer. Dan.
Ooh,
that's Lizzie, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
I was gonna let that.
No, I'm gonna call Lizzie out on that one. That's fair.
So Chad's saying everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but that's a bad opinion.
But Lizzie's is the worst in this instance. Yes.
Okay. Well, we love you, Lizzie, and we
Absolutely.
are excited to talk Black Christmas on this one. So we are going to do this here in a minute. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. I don't think you want this movie spoiled for you, so check out Black Christmas if you've not, and come back and get your eggnog, your Yule log, and a nice Christmas blanket
and your favorite landline phone.
Yes.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
All right, we are back, and this is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. So, Chad, do you want to refresh people's memories for those who haven't seen Black Christmas since 1974?
I do, in classic Christmas form. So here we go. Hope this works. 'Twas the night before Christmas in a sorority house where no one was stirring, not even a mouse. But in through the attic a creep came unseen, a whispering madman, both vile and obscene. His calls were unsettling, his language unclean. The girls laughed it off, though the threat was unseen. First sweet Claire vanished with plastic-bound head, while Jess, Barb, and Phil sensed a feeling of dread. The police got involved, but what a show, for they didn't believe it was more than a ho-ho. Yet soon they discovered the call's wicked twist. He's inside the house, a detail not missed. One by one, terror struck, his presence a blight, leaving poor Jess to face him that night. But as Christmas lights flickered and snowfall grew deep, he slinked back to his lair, still lurking, still creep. So remember, dear friends, as you hang mistletoe, lock your doors tight and don't answer hello.
That
Well
was
done.
excellent.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that.
It wasn't her boyfriend. That was the one thing I couldn't work in there.
You know, I going on that ending, this movie finishes really strong. I think that basement scene was super tense. I really thought like her boyfriend might be like not the bad guy. Like, I didn't think he was the bad guy, but I didn't think he was safe either because he threatened her.
Right.
And I was getting the whole. I thought there might be a showdown between who's going to murder her, and he was going to get in a fight with the killer and say like, "I'm murdering her." No, I'm murdering her.
All he had to do was act in a semi-sane manner, but he just breaks that glass, doesn't say a word, creepily slinks in and stares at her like, "Not, are you okay? I heard banging." Nothing, just, "I'm going to stare at you like a creepy dude," and meets his fate.
He broke a very expensive piano earlier.
He did, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this isn't like the guy who can control his anger real well either.
Right.
Like, if he didn't get killed here, he definitely would have become like a killer bad guy, I think. Like this is just killing him before he got there. Like, you know, if Michael Myers had just been murdered before he became Michael Myers, I mean, it didn't mean that he wasn't going to be Michael Myers. I'm pretty sure Billy had some good murders in him. Well, this is based on some Canadian serial crimes. We got. I'm reading that Wayne Boyden, which was also known as the Vampire Rapist, was the case of a screenwriter that Roy Moore took influence from for the main plot of the film. Bowden murdered 3 women in Montreal in November of '69, and then later he relocated in Calgary, where he claimed his 4th victim in the spring of '71, and was later apprehended after that. So sentenced for 4 life terms. He died in 2006. So you got that as a basis here. And then there's also an urban legend I read here that's the babysitter and the man upstairs.
Oh yeah, classic 60s. That's where the call's coming from inside the house.
When a stranger calls is that basically a bit large, isn't it?
It is. It is. I like I said, I had seen When a Stranger Calls. And I think very few horror movies start off that good in the first quarter. Unfortunately, that movie doesn't that movie loses its momentum.
Yeah. As soon as they get outside the house, it's no longer a good movie.
Well, I mean, I remember watching that one the first time, thinking like, "Holy cow! No one ever talks about this. This is one of the best things I've ever seen." And then about halfway through, I'm like, "Oh, this is what happens." Why? And then when he talks about this movie,
Dan may be with me here. If you've seen the movie Ghost Ship, it has one of the most epic openings, and you're like, "I'm in for such a great time." No, you're not.
No, you're not. No, you're not. That delivers everything in the first 10 minutes. That film does.
Yes,
but nevertheless, I didn't know there was an urban legend behind that, where the call is coming from in the house. And again, I'm reading 6 different films in the 1970s, all take significant influence from this alone. So apparently, this was work that was not necessarily retread. This kind of got there before some of the other ones. So I'm interested here, Dan. We've got like a real crime influence here. I think when I think of slashers and stuff coming later, Jason, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, all these things from much later. What is it that made Black Christmas kind of special? Because I don't think there's a template for this one. It doesn't necessarily follow the template that's to come, but it's a big transitional piece in the development of horror.
Well, it's definitely taking some cues from earlier films such as Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Even it's got some of the scare tactics of Texas Chainsaw, both of which were very loosely based on the killings of Ed Gein. So the idea of taking these real life killings and putting them into a fictional setting, I didn't actually know that about the killings. That just makes it that bit more chilling, to be honest. I'd never heard of the guy doing those murders. It's interesting watch, because people go into it and saying, oh, it's so conventional, it's doing all the rules, but it's the one that laid down the rules. It maybe Halloween perfected them in 4 years later, but Black Christmas somehow just managed to find that concoction of the stalk and slash killer, the psychological thriller, which is more Hitchcockian, like a Dial M for Murder type deal, the giallos of Dario Argento and especially Mario Bava, and just sort of combined them into this really strange, creepy, claustrophobic movie that, as I say, just gets better and creepier and more intense. It's sort of like watching the. Have you seen the film The Descent?
Yes.
Where you notice when the more you watch it, you notice the creatures much earlier on in the film than you first do. Watching Black Christmas again last night, I saw shadows moving on the wall and things like that, reflections in glass, many, many more times than I had before, which is obviously the killer stalking around the house. And it's just that idea that you're not safe in your own home. It's a home invasion film, pretty much, mixed with a slasher, mixed with a giallo, mixed with these horrible real life killings. And I think it's I love it. It's a very special film. Very special film.
This is a film I was talking to Russell offline. It does deserve more credit than it gets, but I also want to take away from some of the credit it keeps getting, because they say, oh, this is the first with a killer cam. And my baby is Peeping Tom. I brought this to the podcast, and that was much, much earlier, and it was kind of disregarded. I think we just forgot that movie existed. Scream references it, but...
Disclaimer on that, though. In my memory, Peeping Tom's first hand camera shots are literally of a guy looking through a camera, and therefore it's got a device that's actually looking through. Here, there's no camera. Like, this is you're in the eyes of the killer per se.
Peeping Tom is more voyeuristic.
Oh, absolutely, it is. Yeah,
and we also, this is credited for kicking off the Christmas horror films, and we have 4 years before this, I believe, is Silent Night, Bloody Night. And so 2 years, it was what Russell was saying. So I want to take away from those credits, but still say that this is influencing. Halloween wouldn't be a thing. There's John Carpenter talking about making a sequel to Black Christmas that turned out to be Halloween. That is one of the giant inspirations he took from it. I think the way that women are treated in this movie is vastly different than what you're talking about with Friday the 13th. I mean, Friday the 13th is talking more of, it's almost like a sin complex. You have to see them do something sinful and then they're killed for it. And it's 99% sexual or drug related. Like, We have Barb, who is a lush in this film, but that's really about it.
You say that, but even then, I think Barb's a more complex character. She's probably got some major daddy issues and some like stuff bottled up inside. She's drinking hard. She's
Yeah.
like she's if you were to dive deeper into this character, I think there's actually a very interesting. She's very self-destructive, extremely defensive, and won't be made vulnerable. She won't be made a victim. I'm sure probably some of like the feminist like I'm not taking crap from you kind of thing might appeal to her, but Barb's actually a really interesting character. I kind of wanted to dive more into Barb. I mean, I know you don't like backstories in horror movies, but I mean, I think Barb's not. Again, she didn't just take her top off while window dressing. I mean, she's her heavily her heavy drinking seems to be her way of coping with the world, especially as her roommate goes missing.
You hit it though. Is these women? It's not that I don't like backstory. I'm fine with characters having personalities where you can describe them by something other than their bra size or their hair color. Of, oh yeah, the hot blonde that died or the hot brunette. That's kind of Friday the 13th thing. Nightmare on Elm Street is a different animal, but we're still sexualizing the women to some extent. Here, they have personalities. You can describe them by things other than their physical characteristics, and I do think that is...
Or how they died.
Yes.
Yeah. And hey, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 sexualizes the men too.
Yes, it absolutely does.
Oh, it does. Absolutely it does.
Yes.
But Dan, let's talk a little more on this. This is each character feels like they're not throwaways. Like, no, we don't get a lot of time with them, but there's also something there.
Well, I think the fact that it's a mostly female cast, you know, the guys in the film are pretty useless. Even the authority figures, you know, it really is a girls, you know, looking out for each other film. And I think that is something that the 2019 film got so horrifically wrong. Was that film that I hate that movie, so I won't talk about it. But the brilliance of the writing of Black Christmas is that it is pretty much a girls only film, and you only realize it, you know, maybe 2 or 3 watches later, and you realize, oh, there's 2 or 3 guys here, one of whom you barely see, Claire's boyfriend, and then you see Keir Dullea character, you know, the psycho with the he bangs up a piano. You know, he's on screen for very short bursts of time. They really are just smatterings in amongst these really long scenes with women talking about other things than just being women. You know, there's the theory of the it's called the Bechdel test, and it's, can you name any film where a woman talks with another woman about not being a woman or about men? And I think this film passes that quite successfully, really. Particularly the relationship between Phyllis and Jess. I think that's a really interesting, complex friendship that they've got written there. And then you said about Barb as well. I think she's one of the most interesting characters in all of 1970s horror, because she is so much more than just a throwaway character who is, as you said, you know, remembered for her bra size or, you know, or how she's killed. Although her kill is absolutely spectacular, and I think, I think the fact that it is really much a girls-only film, or girls, you know, girls against the world film, I think that's what makes it that much special and that much more creepy when it's about a guy invading their personal space.
Oh yeah.
This was a thing. You see it in Happy Days or whatever else, where it was almost cute or funny for guys in a fraternity to go on a panty raid, which is not a thing today, but guys sneaking in girls' house, and it would be fun or whatever. And this is a creepy invasion of space by a male character where he should not be.
Well, this isn't John Belushi on a ladder outside the window. Let's be clear. There's a big distinction and difference with what's going on here.
But what I'm saying is, we had kind of that culture of, it's totally, I wouldn't say fine, but it was mischievous for a male to just invade an all women's space. Obviously, that tone has changed dramatically in 2024. But even here, there's that implicit threat of, okay, we have a male in this house past the point of when any male has been kicked out from the party from Mrs. Mack. And what do we do now? I do love the server room or whatever where they're tracing the calls. That's fascinating to me every time, because I don't imagine just racks and racks, and they're all ringing or wiggling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, telephone buildings used to be large, you know, roughly 8-floor to 12-floor buildings that like had no windows in them. They're hard to reuse, but like they're all full of telephone equipment.
Yeah, giant warehouses full, and that's just a fun scene of running back and forth trying to figure out, because we normally get those. You have to keep them on the line for a trace. You don't. This is the only film I can think of where you can actually see the trace.
That's true.
Now, modern ones might show like a AOL type downloading. There's a percentage, but this is the fascinating one where.
But also the fact that she has to stay on the line for longer, so she has to endure this torment for as long as she possibly can, is just awful. She's being tortured pretty much in efforts to try and get this guy. And I do love the fact that it is in such a wide, expansive building, because unlike other films which use the babysitter and the guy in the house urban legend, we know that from the beginning. You know, with when a stranger calls and he's saying, "Have you checked the children?" You have no idea that he's in the house until the police officer says, she's in the house. He's in the house.
You assume he's in the neighborhood or something.
Exactly,
like watching from a window or whatever.
So you're watching this thing going down. You think, please get it this time, because there's other girls in that house. Not all of them have been picked off yet, but another one's going to go if this call isn't traced properly. And then the call ends before he gets to it, and he snaps his fingers in rage, and then well, that's another one gone. That's another.
The movie is before this, but in terms of like connecting to, like, some people might say, like, did the movie influence the actual real life event? Was the Ted Bundy murders? So there's a sorority house in Tallahassee, Florida. And in 1978, there was a real life attack. Guy entered a sorority house through a door with a bad lock, killed 2 sleeping college students, injuring others, and then fled into the night. And there were several efforts to ban this film following that one.
Well, it actually ruined the network premiere, because it was going to premiere on January 28th, and this was 2 weeks earlier that Ted Bundy wound up killing these Florida State students. And so it was moved all the way to May 14th. So in addition to Ted Bundy being a serial killer and sucking that, for that, he also ruined a movie premiere. So
yeah.
The more I hear about that guy, the less I like him.
Right, that guy sucks.
Yeah, I honestly had heard of the Ted Bundy murders. I don't really dive into serial killer lure, if you will. So
because you're not a middle-aged white woman.
I just don't find.
No, I'm completely the same with you. I love horror movies. I love watching people's heads explode on the screen. I do not want to hear about it happening in real life.
Oh, my wife and Lizzie I know Lizzie
Lizzie
binges them. My wife does too.
My wife does too.
She won't watch a horror movie, but she'll sit there watching true to life. It's like, this guy raped 18 women, murdering them brutally. What are you
hiding them under his porch?
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing?
In dry cleaner bags.
And she's like, this is what I do to go to sleep. How?
Yeah.
That's her cozy up in bed type thing.
Meanwhile, she's wondering why you keep checking her fantasy football team.
I haven't checked that at all.
As you sit there being angry, like, oh!
I actually should check that.
And you're like,
I haven't checked that at all.
I'm so angry right now. Anyway, we did talk about the ending. There was pressure from the studios, particularly as this was brought to America, to make another ending, to change the ending. This notion of, why would you want to change this ending? I think that's part of the power of this movie. Again, the basement scene's awesome. The misdirection of, again, I never really took Billy too seriously to be the guy, because I pretty much could tell like the guy was in the house pretty much the whole time.
You mean Peter?
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Billy's the killer. Billy's the killer. He's in the house pretty much like the whole time. So Peter has no ability to come and go and be around. So I didn't take Peter that much of as far as red herrings go, I didn't think it was that good. However, the fact that he's coming in there, is he safe? As I mentioned before, is he a second psycho? That was what was the tension for me in the suspense there.
That's because you've seen Scream.
Well, and then also being in the closet at the end. Everyone just pats themselves on the back. Good job. We're all leaving.
Yeah.
That was
Well, the studio's suggestion was terrible because they wanted it to be Chris. And for Chris to say, hey, we
What?
got him at the bedside. I'm like, Chris was in the police station this entire movie. He was Claire's boyfriend.
Right.
And
Peter really didn't have that same way. Peter didn't really have that chance to do this.
Peter was a better option than Chris. I have no idea what they were going for.
I'd rather it was
there.
Barb who hadn't died and she'd come back and killed Jess. That's the worst idea I've ever heard in a film.
Yeah.
Getting him to do it.
I get the frustration. I go back and forth of whether. So I like films that don't necessarily tie everything up for me. So the end of Hellfest, which you find out it's a fairly normal guy, but you see him and you see him interact. You don't know anything about Billy. You don't know anything about this mania that he goes through. I go back and forth. I don't know. Better. I don't know how you would wrap it up in a neat way, but I think I wouldn't mind some kind of connection of he's connected to this house some way. It was used by his family and he's just like this insane dude.
Anything more than we didn't get him, but now we know who he is and the police talking about him, like in terms of like describing things that he might have done in the past. Like, oh, this guy has a long line of murders. That's about as much as I would actually want. I don't think I would. Yeah. I mean,
well, I do like the police basically saying, we got him. I do like the incompetent police trope here of, don't worry, Jess, we got him.
Well, it's weird to bring it back to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch again, but the ending of Black Christmas reminds me very much of that film. Because Tommy Lee Wallace, he was being pressured by the studio to change the ending of Halloween 3 to be a much more, this is what happened, not an open ending. And the studio said, if you don't change this, we are not promoting this film. And he asked John Carpenter, and John Carpenter said, Tommy, it's your movie. You do what you do. And I think the ending to Halloween 3 is brilliant because it is so, okay, we get it. Millions of kids have just died. And watching the ending of Black Christmas and you realize the camera's panning out, everyone in the house is empty, and now the phone is ringing. He got Jess in the end. Yeah. I love the fact that it's a bleak ending because the whole film is bleak from beginning to end. There's a lot of laughing in it, but the laughing is shut down pretty quickly by what happens to those characters and that poor girl in the park. And it's a very dark film. It's much darker and more aggressively darker than some of the later films like Friday the 13th, which has they're bloody, but they're also quite silly. There's not a lot of room for silliness in this film.
There's humor.
There's definitely humor.
Like the bad dress, the fraternity mom, anything like her sneaking drinks. I actually thought the fraternity mother, like the incompetent, adult in the sorority.
Miss Mac.
Yeah, Miss Mac was funny. I thought
she's the best character in the film. I love her.
She's just swearing off the hook, and the kind of prudish father.
I was gonna say that father was pretty funny too.
I liked him.
They dialed it up with him of like, I didn't send my daughter here to be drinking.
Miss Mac's holding her hand over the poster the guys bought.
Yeah, like and there's some funny stuff.
I really want that poster of the old woman in the chair giving the finger. I really want that poster on my wall in my film shed because that is a great poster.
There you go. Well, you got your Halloween 3 mask, so.
Yes, I did. Yes, my wife got me a Halloween 3 silver shamrock mask for my birthday, and I love it.
I would have such a hard time putting that on and not hearing do 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 do.
Oh, I had it the whole night in my head. It was ridiculous.
So I think another interesting thing in how these characters are constructed is you have already set the table for this abortion's front and center in this movie. The roles are kind of flipped. So sometimes, you might more stereotypically expect the boyfriend character to be like, well, we got to get an abortion here. And the girl's like, no, I don't intend to. And that's kind of the trope that you usually go through. And here it's really turned on its head of where the woman says, this isn't a good time in life right now. And I can't manage this, and this isn't going to work, and I'm not going to do this. And Peter is deeply, probably due to his personal beliefs, which they didn't do a great deal of, they didn't lay it out on the table, but I mean, he just was it was very repugnant for him to deal with that. And so I think that's one of those other feminist things too, of in there, you kind of tilt that on its side of, and at the end of the day, it is still her body. She still has,
choice.
It is her life. I mean, nothing's preventing, he can say, I'm going to be there for you, but I mean, he can hightail it out of there 2 weeks later and say like, oh, this kid thing, it's pretty hard. Yeah, you deal with that. And so,
well, I think with the way he dresses and everything, and the way there's a moment. It's meant to be a jump scare, and Jess is on the phone and she's talking to the police, and there's a scare of him throwing his coat over the banister of the stairs, and she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to call you. I was out in the park." And he says, "Yeah, like he seems like he's almost like a father type authority figure to Jess. He sees himself as the man of the relationship, the one who should what's the word? Dictates what happens between the two of them. And Jess doesn't have that. And I love that about her character, because as you say, in other films, she would have been the passive, okay, yes, you're the guy, I will do whatever, I will basically try and make you happy. But she's active in her own future and in her own face, which can't be said for a lot of final girls in horror films, that's for sure. I mean, Laurie Strode, Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street, they're the exceptions, really, that I think she's up there with those in terms of how active she is in the plot, rather than being completely passive and just being a victim. She's only a victim because of the circumstance of what's happening with Billy. That's completely out of her control. What she can control, this abortion, the relationship, she holds on to that very, very tightly. And you were saying, Chad, about Olivia Hussey's past. That must have played into it, maybe not in terms of writing of the character, but in the way that Olivia Hussey plays it. It's extremely, like when she's saying, I'm getting an abortion, she doesn't even look at him. She just says, this is what's happening. You don't have a say in this. 1974, that, as you say, 1 year after Roe v. Wade, that's really bold writing for a female character, especially in a cheap exploitation horror film. You'd usually think that the females, they'd stick to their given stereotypes or archetypes, but no, Bob Clark was saying, this is a girl who's got much more about her. All the girls in the film have much more about them, but especially Jess. I think it's a very, very daring. I can't imagine. I mean, I don't mean to bring politics into this now with 2024, but I wonder how that film will play in a second Trump term, with people watching the film with this horrible "your body, my choice" kind of mentality that's been going around on the internet. I wonder what people will think of the character of Jess. Will they see her as the villain rather than as the active heroine of the piece?
I mean, I gotta give her credit. She didn't love him. So she was very clear on that. She's like, and they did a good job of making it why. Like he was a baby. He had a hard time dealing with his anger, and as you pointed out, he was super controlling. This doesn't look like somebody you want to, spend the rest of your life with, and furthermore, parent a kid with, which is hard stuff. And she did want to finish her career. Now, they did not establish why she might be so career driven, but they didn't have to. I mean, that was still something that was a big part of that.
When she's talking about saying, remember when we first met and I have a career, she like puts her hands together and leans forward like she's talking to a child.
Yeah.
It's like, listen to me now. I'm trying to drop some truth bombs on you here. Listen to what I have to say rather than just flying off the deep end again.
And Peter's such an unlikable character. Like that entire scene where she's really communicating, because he's trying to be forceful to her and she's communicating, just shutting it down. You don't have a say. That's such an ugly scene where he is, to your point, lashing out, acting like a child. It's not somebody that you want in your life. Right. I think it'd be a little bit, this film might be a little bit better if they had a more meaningful relationship. I hated Peter from like the first time he showed up.
You're not supposed to like Peter.
I know, but you could have a different dynamic if they're in some kind of a relationship and he is trying to talk to her in a manner of understanding where she is and love.
This movie. It's Coach Carter.
Yeah. Coach Carter does that as an aside. That's an interesting. That is an
interesting
he's also
angle. Such a good contrast to the character of Chris, who is Phil's partner, because he seems like a really good guy. He seems like he really cares best for her.
Right.
But Jess is, the one who we've really focused on, the one we're really emotionally attached to. And she's the one having to deal with this complete arse,
Yeah.
Which just makes it that much better when she actually stands up for herself.
I blame 2001: A Space Odyssey because he was creepy as David Bowman.
I didn't. Somehow I didn't make the connection.
All those dead eyes.
In space suit the whole time. Later on, like I read that it was, and I was like, oh yeah, this is him. I'm really glad to see him in something else.
I'm not. No, he just
really,
has this dead-eyed stare. I don't know what it is about him.
Well,
clearly, Pal messed him up big time.
They considered going Michael McDonald for him from Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, that's worse.
I was gonna say you want to go
Malcolm McDowell.
Sorry, Malcolm. Sorry, thank you. Sorry, Michael McDonald is from Mad TV. Sorry.
Yeah,
yes,
but Malcolm McDowell regrets it. He regrets it quite a bit that he turned it down.
You know,
I can't see that.
He did Clockwork Orange the same exact year, so he made the right choice.
Right.
I mean, I know you hate Kubrick, but I mean that movie's an iconic movie.
I don't hate Kubrick.
You don't?
No.
We have it on record.
I still think. Listen, I don't need to go on every single one of our podcasts saying The Shining is overrated, but The Shining is overrated.
Okay, I'm okay. For the record, I think Michael Bay is a terrible filmmaker, but I don't think that's an unpopular opinion.
No, he was
really good.
He was very close to directing Saving Private Ryan. I heard that the other day. He couldn't figure out how to do it, but there'd be a lot more explosions on the Normandy.
I mean, Olivia Hussey was she was Juliet in Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, which is a film we can no longer show to high schoolers.
You know, I think I watched that in 6th grade.
We definitely did, but they were underage when they shot.
Well, I was underage when I watched it. I was underage when I watched it, so there.
I'm not sure that makes it better.
I'm not sure that makes it okay.
But she's the iconic Juliet.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is. She's brilliant.
And you know, you have I was having a hard time. Where do I know John Saxon from?
Oh my goodness!
Into the Dragon,
Into the Dragon.
Nightmare on Elm Street. He's Nancy's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's also an incompetent cop.
Oh well.
Yeah.
It's his thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure we said the same thing when we discussed Nightmare on Elm Street. We said he's the exact same cop in Black Christmas.
He's less incompetent here. The people in the station, like, you know, the guy answering the phone was like, so there's we have a murder case. We have calls coming from this place, and you didn't really think that this would be a problem. And
right.
Like
he is given one job. He's like, don't say the killer's in the house.
No.
And then he does it. He's like, the killer's in the house.
Well, you know, this has the trope of the girl running upstairs, but again, it was incredibly justified. She grabbed a weapon before she does it, and she has the motivation to save her friends. She doesn't know they're dead. They are dead, but she doesn't know they're dead.
She did try the front door, and it was briefly inconvenienced, so she abandoned that strategy.
Well, my point is she went upstairs with the point of saving somebody.
Yeah,
this is true.
So with the front door, they set up earlier on that the front door is damaged. Because Mrs. Mack had been talking to the school janitor the college janitor trying to get it fixed for years, you know.
Take the unusually strong trellis out. That is a very strong, like, they're not that heavyweight. They just grow vines on them. You don't have like large scale full grown men climbing up trellises up to the attic.
You did in just about every 70s to 80s movie. Like that's a trope.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't build your trellises so stoutly.
I hate retro movie architecture. Let's just. But houses like that, fine. We're going to talk architecture. You cannot convince me that a house like that doesn't have a back door. It has a back door. Just go out that way.
For sure. And probably windows that are, you know, like, I'm not looking forward to jumping out of this window, but I mean, you know.
Yeah, the basement. Clearly, she could have broken out a window in the basement and gotten out.
We do these things for suspense. We don't want logic here.
Yeah, it's like the pitch meeting. Why does she run into the basement instead of the back door? So the movie can happen.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting. Olivia Hussey was saying that she had a good time. The mood on the set was light, despite the heavy content that you mentioned. She said that Margot Kidder was rather distant, kept from the cast during filming. I read online, but then Margot Kidder had conflicting reports of saying like she and Andrea Martin became close friends on the set, got along really well. And she said she found her co-star Olivia Hussey to be rather odd and kept talking about her obsessive love for musician Paul McCartney. So I just think reading between the lines, these two don't like each other and everybody else was having fun.
Well, it was worse than that because Olivia Hussey took the film because she was told by her psychic that she would do a Canadian film that would make a bunch of money, which kudos to the psychic, nailed it. but also was told by the psychic that she would fall in love with Paul McCartney. Like they would. So that was part of it. Is this psychic doubled down and said, "All right, I got you one. Let's go big or go home. You and Paul McCartney are going to be an item." So I guess she was
Well, don't
bragging
forget,
about that.
he did write the song "I Love Me, I Do." Terrible joke. I do apologize.
Did not work out, but yeah, I found that trivia and I thought that was pretty funny too. I believe Margot Kidder.
I think I believe Margot Kidder as well.
Maybe so. I mean, she's a strong personality in her own right. It seems. Well, you know what? She seems like a strong personality in her own right. I don't know how much she actually is off screen, but she certainly plays a strong personality with she's Lois Lane.
Yeah.
She plays a super strong personality here. I really like her character. Yes, she's out of control and she's sloppy and she's rude and but you know what? You hadn't seen a female character do that on screen very often, to my knowledge. She was every bit as brash and brazen as any guy could be.
Mm-hmm.
And again, another feminist moment of like, you know, I think she's funny. She's sitting there reading a Playboy at one point or whatever. Like you know, when the uptight dad is there, she's just trying to provoke him when she's like, "Saw these turtles doing it for 3 hours. I'm lucky to get 3 minutes." And I'm like, you know, this guy doesn't want this conversation. And yes, she is drunk and she needs to go to bed, but she's still like, she's just prodding him. Like,
right.
Boop, 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 boop.
She improv'd a bunch of those phone lines too, so that's pretty good. But I did see you're the big SNL person. Gilda Radner was up for that part.
Gilda would have been
good too.
Gilda would have been good, but I think, you know, Margot Kidder's got some backbone.
She nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Better scream queen moment for Margot Kidder here or Amityville?
Here.
Oh, I think
Amityville
here.
horror a lot.
I think here.
I like Amityville.
I like Amityville as well.
This kill for Margot Kidder is
Oof.
fantastic. I mean, that's just an extra long unicorn horn. That's going to come up a couple of times.
You know, they brought the style in that. Like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Bob Clark's like, boom.
I'm going to be Dario Argento for 2 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, I perked up. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is good. I didn't know you had this in you, Black Christmas.
Yeah, the shot of her arm falling slowly behind the bedstead with the breaking the other glass and her hands covered in blood. I just love that shot. I think that scene is the best scene in the film. The choir singing at the door and Margot Kidder being murdered. I think it's such a brilliantly executed scene.
I would agree with you. And if you're going to subvert Christmas expectations, that's where it's hitting the hardest.
Yeah.
Like the violence with the singing. This movie doesn't steer very hard into Christmas. You're not going to like this opinion, but I kind of came out of there saying like, this could have happened easily at Halloween. There weren't any like super plot sensitive things of like a lot of the police are out right now. It's Christmas time or something like that. Or like, you know, hey, nobody's in school right now. Who knows? Everybody's going home for Christmas. Like who's here, who's not here. Like there were plot points that I was expecting to be Christmas centric or like, hey, the sororities, we always get together with the fraternities at Christmas at a big Christmas party. And Christmas isn't really very central to this. There are wreaths and lights around, but it's not that Christmassy.
It's a movie that happens at Christmas versus being a Christmas movie. That's fine.
Well, I'm just saying it wasn't very, other than the caroling that Dan had just mentioned, if you're going for the shock of Christmas being subverted into a violent horror thing, they didn't go to mine that as hard as I thought they would.
You want Mrs. Mac to be strangled by a string of Christmas lights instead of that pulley.
If you want that, you watch the 2006 Black Christmas.
No,
I don't. But I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay, that film gets a lot of hatred. People really hate that remake of Black Christmas from 2006. I love it. I think it's a really fun, proper slice of exploitation cinema. It goes completely nuts with eyeballs on Christmas trees as decorations and people eating skin made, cookies made out of human skin. It's completely ridiculous, and I love that.
So you said we had an Oscar winner in this one almost.
Yes, yeah, that was Edmond O'Brien. He was cast as Lieutenant Fuller, but when Bob Clark went to pick him up at the airport, he's in a wheelchair, and he was able to get up out of the wheelchair, but he started forgetting things, and it was discovered he had Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's, and he was let go. They didn't want to do outdoor filming, freezing Canadian weather, so he was fired. O'Brien was fired. He cried over it. and said the
Aw.
news was one of the most traumatic memories of his life. Like he's coming to terms with, okay,
Yeah.
my career may be over. I may be done. And this movie, if they hadn't found John Saxon, they've said they weren't even going to make it. So John Saxon came in incredibly late. I want to say it was like a week or so before filming.
I read somewhere where he had 2 days to get to Toronto and shoot the movie.
Yeah.
So that is short notice. I thought you were going to go with Betty Davis was considered to be Miss Mac.
Which now
She
you
turned
know
it down.
who
I
that
know
is.
well who Betty Davis is. I couldn't forget.
That would have been incredible.
She would have been good.
That
We
would have been
just
so
covered
good.
Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. And so
Oh.
that was Russell's introduction to Betty Davis.
I
in
won't forget her
cinema.
now.
Yeah.
Oh.
She would be a great Miss Mac, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
Also, watch the
Yeah,
Hammer film,
absolutely.
The Nanny. She's in.
Yeah.
She's crazy in that film. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, she's completely sane in Whatever Happened to
Oh,
Baby
absolutely.
Jane.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't believe this cheap movie in Canada gets Hussey. You get Keir Dullea
Yeah.
from 2001. I get Margot Kidder was she hadn't been Lois Lane yet, so she was more on the rise. But like, this movie has better casting than you would ever think. This movie's made for $600,000 in Canada. How did they get so many good people? I don't get it.
I assume that it's the Canadian niceness. Like they just go out and they're very super polite.
I have a
They're
feeling
not-
that Bob Clark could talk the talk. I think
Yeah.
Bob Clark definitely had a way of getting actors to, if you can get John Voight to do Baby Geniuses or something, I'm sure he can get Margot Kidder to star in a low-budget Canadian slasher movie.
Super babies.
I mean, his stuff before this. So this is his 5th movie. Correct me if I'm wrong. None of these are like really like grab the world by the collar and like say like it's not like he had clout coming in. This isn't like saying.
I've seen 0 of his earlier movies.
I mean, I've heard of Porky's later and some of the things that come later, Porky's 2 and
A Christmas Story.
Christmas stories. Yeah, I mean,
He loves subverting that expectation. But yeah, Emperor's New Clothes, She-Man, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, and Death Dream.
I find the title "Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things" to be an interesting title. I know nothing about the movie, and the title grabs me.
Yeah,
When was that? Was that 1970?
1972. Yeah.
Yes, I have seen Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I did not know that was Bob Clark. That's interesting. I did not know that.
Well, you guys go deep into the horror well.
Yeah.
So, but
there's a certain point where you just become a degenerate and you're like, okay, I've seen 1,000. Might as well just dig into whatever I can find on the internet.
I want to get that on a t-shirt, by the way. I am a degenerate.
I'm a horror degenerate. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
So the original title was Stop Me, which I think is terrible and
Correct.
doesn't say anything. Black Christmas, which is fine. As you mentioned, blaxploitations was a type of film, so people were expecting an all-black cast here and stuff like that. Perhaps by that, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily jump to that. I like the White Christmas, Black Christmas flip here. And then there was Silent Night, Evil Night by an American distributor who wanted to go with, again, getting away from the blaxploitation thing. I like the title Black Christmas. What is that? I mean, maybe I wasn't there at the time, but I'm not confused. I can handle this.
I don't know. I can remember when we were doing trivia night, and I was playing a game with my wife, and there was the trivia question said this movie with black humor, and at the end, it was a movie with an all-white cast, and my wife was very confused. Like, no, that's not.
Usually do say like black. You said black comedy, right?
Yeah, something like that, which doesn't mean a comedy with black people.
Like Barbershop.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I know.
Yeah. So it. I don't know. Blaxploitation was huge, and I guess I can see it, but I like Black Christmas. I enjoy that title, and I think if you call it Silent Night, Evil Night, that's way too close to Silent Night, Bloody Night, and then later Silent Night, Deadly Night. I don't want to get these confused.
Okay. Well, then let's talk about Bob Clark here. This movie is pretty well made, as we've talked about. You're balancing elements of mystery, real crime, horror, and you're taking a lot of influences from Hitchcock, from Argento, from all kinds of these things that we've talked about. He goes on to influence many things. Dan, what is it Bob Clark's doing? What's his secret sauce here? You mentioned you've seen one of his 4 movies prior to this, but what's got this all clicking on a low budget, being resourceful, I might add here as well?
I think it's the use of the location, the way he uses the claustrophobic nature of that sorority house. He somehow manages to make it feel incredibly claustrophobic, but also huge as well. So that the idea that this killer could be hiding anywhere in any of those rooms, not just in the attic, but also you could be hiding behind a wardrobe or something, or in someone's cupboard, to strangle her. I think it's the music is, I think there's a huge part of it. Carl Zitra's score, which combined with Bob Clark's constantly moving camera, the camera never is static really in this film. It is always doing something interesting. It's always revealing a shadow or something, or it's revealing another part of the room where the killer could be. Probably not, but could be. And it's basically just taking you on a walking tour of this house, which is with each kill is becoming, each room is becoming another scene of another death. I love the fact that each of the kills in the film is confined to this house, apart from the one death of the police officer, which is in the car, but it's in the environs of the house.
Yeah.
I love the warmness of the house, the decorations, even though it's the worst Christmas tree in cinema history. That is an ugly looking tree. But
Snoopy's?
That's the best.
That's the best tree.
Yeah. You missed the point of the movie.
Well, I mean,
go watch it again.
You like the tree even though it's a bad tree, but it is still a bad tree, but you still like to appreciate it.
The tree in Black Christmas looks like it's covered in spiders and cobwebs. It looks horrible. It looks like it's just been pulled out of an attic.
I don't want to interrupt
you. Sorry, I'm obsessed about trees. The lighting and the way you can hear the wind outside, completely contrasting with the warmness of the house with the fire and all the wooden furniture and the coziness of that. I just think the way that Bob Clark uses the environment, rather than using a great deal of special effects, or the cinematography is great, but it's not in your face cinematography. It's just all helps to add to the tension, rather than saying, oh, now look at this big set piece where the camera's swooping through the house. And it's very subtly directed compared to a lot of the other time. If you look at something like The Exorcist or The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that is a film that really is in your face, constantly. But Black Christmas is a film that allows itself to breathe through Bob Clark's fluid, direction. You're not left in any place for too long, for too short a time. You're always off somewhere else in this house, which is probably going to see another death happen in a few minutes.
He did do a great job of picking some evil-looking stairs.
Oh, yeah.
They picked a vacant house, surprisingly, and they rented it, and they've had to fix it up enough to make it convincing, but they picked it, again, for its relationship of the attic to the hatch. They wanted a set of stairs that you could look up and shoot and not see the person. Like, they wanted to look at your feet, basically, when they looked up the twisting stairs, so that, there was ambiguity of what you were looking up. They knew what they wanted for, and they found it, and they got it. And boy, Bob Clark apparently writes out these meticulously drawn storyboards for each shot. He wanted to be really prepared because he didn't have a lot of money. He needed to make it work. Mm-hmm. His preparation to find that location that fit his vision was spot on. I mean, and once he found it too, again, excellent work in the basement. The way it moves around those open back stairs. Mm-hmm. I mean, the use of those clear story lights that are, I mean, to have a vision and to find a place, and granted, it was vacant, as I said. Like, the house had to, so there's some degree of you can shape it into what you want within reason. But again, they have no money either. So, But because they chose to do this, they didn't shoot it in a film studio. It had the detail, and it felt like a real house too.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of what you were getting at, Dan. Like, just like the girls felt like they were real constructions and they each had a personality. Well, it really felt like they were in a sorority house, and it didn't feel like they were in Canada. They tried really hard to downplay. I mean, I don't know how hard you have to try and downplay it. I maintain the cultural shock between Canada and America is pretty minimal. In fact, I think you can have more cultural shock going to Texas and within America than you can do across the border in some cases. But I've heard some things like, they have a hockey game, there's snowmobiles. I'm like, yeah, but that can happen in Minnesota too. So, I mean,
go walk into Quebec and tell me it's not a culture shock.
Well, that's we're not in Quebec. We're here. We're outside of Toronto here. And
Correct.
So
yeah.
I mean,
Little New York.
yeah.
Might as well.
They do sprinkle American flags around in the
Yes,
scenes
they do.
just to hit you over the head with them, like, we're in America.
Yep, of course. I think what sets this apart or makes it a little different, at least Bob Clark's vision, is he pulls back on, it's a slasher, but we don't really see any of the kills. And the original script called for a much gorier kill count and body count. And almost all of them, they're not off screen, but say Barb, she's out of the shot as she's being stabbed. You might see an arm, as Dan brought up.
That's
or
a good one.
Miss Mac, she's pulled into the attic
Yeah.
and in a less terrible way than Nancy's mom is
First
at the
one
end
was
of
good.
Nightmare. Yeah, the
First one was good.
The first one is good.
The one, because then she has the plastic over her, and you
Yeah,
find
the
that you see
bag.
it later.
the bag.
Like
Yeah,
you don't know where she went. You don't know like what horrible things is he doing to her. Did he abduct her? Did he take her to put her in a well and tell her to rub the lotion on the skin? I mean, you don't know.
right.
But later on, you see the cat finds her in the attic, and you're like, oh yeah, you're dead.
Yeah, that was his call to be more subtle about it, and
Love
Roy
that
Moore wound up agreeing with him, and I think it's a better movie for it.
Yeah.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And I think that's another reason why it stands out amongst the batch of early slasher movies post Halloween, because those films like Mario Bava's Bay of Blood, Twitch of the Death Nerve, that's an extremely gory movie.
Yes.
You know, this one does have blood, and I just love that shot where Barb's getting stabbed, and you see in the reflection of one of the other glass ornaments, you see the unicorn come down, and it comes up, and there's nothing on it, but then the second stab comes down, and then it's got blood on it. I think that's a really horrible detail that either he missed or he didn't quite manage to pierce the skin or something. It's just a really ungraphic way of showing something completely horrible. And the same with Claire's death as well. When you see her in the attic and you see the plastic sucked into the mouth, you know that you knew that she suffocated, and you know that must have been a hideous way to die. You didn't need to see it because your imagination fills in all the rest. And that's what the really great horror directors do. They leave it to your imagination rather than just showing it.
Yep. I mean, we've covered Jaws. We'll go back to Jaws. Less is more.
The best movie
absolutely.
ever made.
I think another reason when I got done complimenting the cast, I don't remember who said it, but you can say if you have a bad script and a good cast, you have a much greater chance of having a really good movie than you do if you have a good script and a bad cast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, good actors, maybe not like outstanding, but like, I mean, enough to make even Siskel go like, hey, these are great actors, not, doing junk.
Right. So
it's not junk, but it could have been taken as such without people giving it the feeling like that I'm wondering what we would have gotten with Edward O'Brien in that role, because I'm just curious to know what if they had gotten Bette Davis and Edward O'Brien. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it was the tradition with the 80s slashers to get in a veteran actor to be in these films. In Friday the 13th, you had Betsy Palmer. In what film is it? I think it's I can't remember which film it is, but I think it's got Glenn Ford in it. I think, and in a really prominent role, and I can't remember what film it is. But they've got all these really big Hollywood legends coming into these really cheap slasher films to give them some kind of prestige value, and usually it backfired. Like Betsy Palmer was I think Siskel posted her address or something in his review, so they could send complaints to her or something like that. I know he certainly did that with Silent Night, Deadly Night to he put the address of the distributors and the directors if you want to send in your complaints. But that was sort of the thing to do, was to put in a high profile actor amongst this cast of relative newcomers to try and give the film a bit more of a prestige thing. And I think that's where John Saxon and Marian Waldman, who played Mrs. McHenry, comes in.
Good soundtrack too, by the way.
Oh,
yeah.
I love the soundtrack.
Like, I mean,
excellent.
Strong use of music. I think it's Carl Zitter.
Carl Zitra, yeah.
So sorry, Carl Zitra.
Yeah, creepy soundtrack. Just that.
I read that there were just forks and combs and knives hitting the strings of a piano, and also to compress the film, to push on the recording so that it would slow and make the reel of the playback. Doing all kinds of weird and fun things with the music when you sit there and read about how they do it, but the results good.
It just lends it a really creepy, doomy atmosphere.
Mhm.
The music in When a Stranger Calls. It's very similar to that. Like that kind of really low, groaning sounds that the piano's doing. I love the soundtrack to Black Christmas. I think it's an incredibly effective score that Carl's did. Minimal, but extremely effective.
I'll agree with that, but what I miss when we hit the slasher genre, and it's just something that comes later, is the theme. I need a recurring creepy theme.
You can't just kick out a Halloween John Carpenter like thing like that, like
but
you can't just you can't conjure that up every time.
Friday the 13th, Scream, Nightmare, they all have very iconic themes that will play out.
But I think it's also key that they became franchises.
Yeah, that's true.
Black Christmas doesn't really need a theme because it uses that really creepy version of Silent Night at the beginning over the opening credits, which I think really sets the chilling mood of the entire film.
I'm so glad they didn't make a sequel, by the way. This made a lot of money and was made for very little. That almost guarantees in today's times that there will be a sequel, and I'm glad that there wasn't at this time.
I want to see a sequel. I mean, it's just the horror junkie in me. Give it a shot.
Yeah, that's I don't know.
Yeah, Russell's looking at me slightly disappointed. It's fine. I give it a shot. I do like the fact that it's standalone, but it's been remade twice. So at this point, make a sequel, whatever.
As I say, the original sort of the 2006 remake, the first one, sort of serves as a prequel and a sequel at the same time, because you get the backstory of Billy and what he was all about, and who is Agnes, and what's the baby all about, and all that. I mean, as I said, it's a very, very violent, gory movie.
Yeah.
Where Black Christmas is pretty reserved with its gore. It's the same with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. The first one's basically bloodless. The remake's completely off the wall, gore to the wall.
The calls aren't as effective here as they are in like Scream or like When a Stranger Calls, because there's a room full of other people there. Like there's some degree of like if they're receiving those graphic. You can only make phone calls like that in the 1970s on film, by the way. You can just get away with anything in the 70s. I don't feel like those phone. I think those phone calls have to get dialed down later.
This is one of the first films to drop the C-bomb here. So
I was going to say, I think it was the first film in which I ever heard it, actually.
So the calls are legitimately scary, but I always felt like there's a lot of people around. That gives somebody like Barb a lot of oomph to say, like, I'm not taking this. I'm going to protect everybody else. Like
it's the Mona.
It's the Mona.
So whenever you're the only one in the house, or if they're babysitting and protecting children or whatever, then that's a lot different. You know what I mean? That doesn't have that isolation. Like, oh no, it's just me and somebody else.
But that moment when Billy switches from the manic voice to "I'm going to kill you,"
that was the bit I was just about to speak about. I'm going to kill you.
Oh,
just so matter of fact.
It's just dialing it up. That's dialing it up. So like, anytime a guy hits on a girl and
what kind of
foreplay
are you having?
No. Like in the bar, like they'll hit on a girl, like, "Hey baby, what's up?" And then like she'll shut him down. It's like that, so that snaps, but this is dialed up to the serial killer level.
We have different approaches because I never tried
don't do that either, but it's a thing.
The manic rambling and then suddenly dead serious. I'm going to kill you.
Yeah,
he doesn't handle rejection well.
He does not.
No, it's a bit where it's like in Scream where Ghostface says, "Which door am I at?" And you suddenly realize, oh, this is not good. This guy may be creepy, may be threatening, but he's in her personal space, and he said, "I'm going to kill you." Just so matter of factly, just saying like, "You're dead."
It's a big house, I get it, but how do they not hear anything in the attic? He's doing voice work and everything up there.
Yeah, that occurred to me as well. That does bother me.
It's a giant loophole that you just have to ignore.
I mean, he's an excellent voice worker. I mean, it sounds like there was definitely other people in there. Like, I mean, it was later. I was like, oh, I guess he was just doing voices. Like, it's like the Jimmy Fallon Saturday Night Live where then the radio station's like, I thought there were a lot more people in here. And like, he's just doing.
You've got Mel Blanc up there as a serial killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, why didn't Quint, Brody, and Hooper go back and get another boat? It would have been, these things have to happen. I don't mind a bit of.
Because Quint's too big of a man to do it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's his pride. It's his ego. Okay, there is a reason why. Bad example.
Let's hand out some awards here.
Absolutely.
MVP Dan of Black Christmas.
I think it is Carl Zitra, the composer. Whenever I go into a loft or an attic, and all I can think is, that really horrible groaning noise. I think, as I said, I think the score to Black Christmas is one of the strongest of the 1970s. I love it.
See, when I go to an attic, I expect to see Clark Griswold being very cold there, waiting for his family to come back home. So we have different expectations.
Okay, that's my
What we get
favorite
in our
scene
attic.
in any Christmas movie, where he's
This is
watching
my-
the Super 8 tapes.
This is my second Canadian horror film of the year that's featured an attic, because we just covered The Changeling. So
Oh,
it's
That was good, by the way.
it's been a weird year.
I had to sit that one out.
Yeah, Russell missed this would have been the absolute peak of retro movie architecture.
That was a lot of good architecture in that movie.
There was, yeah.
there's a
So
great
much.
use of a
Sorry,
staircase.
I had nothing but steps on this one.
Great
So,
use of a staircase in the Changeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, Chad, MVP.
I went Margot Kidder. She
She's great.
I remember Jess's outfit. I remember Margot Kidder's character. So she's the one I enjoy the most, and I enjoyed watching die the most. Not that I was rooting for her to die. That it's one of the few cases where none of these characters were built of like, I want to see them die. Again, this is not Friday the 13th
Yeah.
where they're annoying me to the point I want to see them die in a brutal way. I was sad to see Barb go.
I didn't see Barb going like that. If
No?
anything, I expected her to see like with like the fire poker herself, like going like I'm
Fighting
good.
back?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I thought she'd go down.
You got-
Obviously, she didn't see it coming, so that's
Yeah.
different. But
She's
You gotta
completely
get her in her-
unconscious.
her
It's
sleep.
hot. And it's the fact she had a nightmare a few minutes before where she saw the guy in her room.
Yeah, she's gasping for
She's
air.
gasping. She's
as-
terrified.
yeah.
She's already
Yeah.
really, really vulnerable.
and super drunk.
And it's the only
Yes,
time you
very
see
drunk.
her vulnerable in the entire film, because she
Apparently
thinks
she
that
did a lot
someone's
of
coming
this
to her
actually drunk
room.
herself too.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's consistent with Margot Kidder. Yes.
Oh, bless her. Rest in peace.
I'm going to Margot Kidder as well. I mean, despite having Olivia Hussey in here, who's probably hailed as a better actress. And
Is she?
I guess the Romeo and Juliet component. I mean,
She's legendary for sure, but
I'm going with Kidder on this one.
Yeah.
So, best supporting, Dan.
In that case, I will go for Margot Kidder. Because she is brilliant. She's not the main character, but she completely steals the film. Even against characters like Mrs. McHenry, who I think is an absolute delight from beginning to end. Margot Kidder finds this very great balance between almost annoying in your faceness, like to the point where if you're in a party you'd want to try and avoid her, and really sad vulnerability when she's having that conversation with her mom and she realizes she's not going to see anyone at Christmas, and she just got that heartbreaking look on her face and asks her girls to go skiing with her because she just wants to be with someone. That she's very much a front. She tries to put on this hard girl edge, telling the police officer that there's a new exchange code and things like that, and getting the kids to drink around her. But she's just
That
a
was also
very
funny.
fellatio.
but she's just a very, very sad character. And I think Margot Kidder gets that balance perfectly, I think.
Margot Robbie would do a good job in a
Oh, she would be
remake.
great. She would be
She
really
would be.
good.
It would be fun. And,
She's good at lots of things, in fairness. But yes.
yeah, that's.
But,
you can plug her in.
But I would agree a lot with what you said there. Margot Kidder, I thought she was the main character for a while. I hadn't
Oh.
seen this before, so when she it wasn't clear to me that until I don't know, maybe halfway or 40% or whatever, I was like, oh, Jess. We're now spending more time with Jess, and I was like, are we going to spend a lot more time with the third girl, or are we going to keep going around the sorority? How's this going to go? To me, it didn't hit me over the head with who the final girl or main character girl was, which I think is a strength of the movie. That's another reason why I didn't see Barb going at the time signature or in the way that she did.
Okay.
Well, it's a kind of psycho thing, isn't it? You don't expect Marian Crane to be murdered in the shower. You expect
Right,
her to be
yeah.
the main character for the entire thing. And because she's such a big personality, and the same with Margot Kidder, you think, oh, she's going to make it to the end. She's going to be the main character of the story. And no, she's axed.
I also know her as Lois Lane, which is later, I know. But to me, when you read down the cast, she's got the biggest name now. So when I sit there and I go like, well, you're not going to kill your biggest actor. But she wasn't the biggest actor at the time. So, I mean, so again, just another reason why I was like, oh, like I thought, whose movie is this? And you look closer at the billing, you're like, oh. So, Chad, best supporting.
I mean, Nightmare fan, I have to go John Saxon.
Really?
If it's not for him, this movie doesn't get made. He stumbles in and there was threat of not making this movie at all. So he's the incompetent cop. He's more competent here than he is in Nightmare, but he's doing his job, and I enjoy his screen presence. He just kind of emanates this cop vibe at this point.
Strong eyebrow game.
Yes,
absolutely. I also want to give a very quick shout out to the guy who plays Claire's father, because I know that he's overacting in a bit, but there is a moment when he's first introduced and he's just waiting around for Claire outside the university campus, and you hear the bell ringing, and someone throws a snowball at his face.
Yes.
I was watching that scene so closely because you can often tell in films if someone's about expecting to be hit in the face with a projectile, like a snowball or a fake bullet or whatever, you can see them slightly wince just beforehand, like they're anticipating it. But that looks completely genuine. So I don't know if that was an improvised thing at the moment, or if that was just
James
something.
Edmond. Yeah.
If it was something he just was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm just not going to react to it until the moment, was impressive to me. But I've seen this film too many times to really care about that.
Well, I would go Margot Kidder, but I made her the MVP, so I'm going to go with Miss Mac, Marian Waldman.
Yeah. She's wonderful.
Yeah. And when I said I want Bette Davis in the role, that's not my recast. Like, I just think Bette Davis is now awesome. So
she is.
But she's funny. Miss Mac's funny.
Absolutely.
Like, I like her stashing drinks and, being bad at her job, and, like, oh, Claire's a good girl. Like, like while she like covers up like the peace sign, like nude people, like, like on the field, and I don't know. Everything she did was funny.
In the 2006 remake, she's played by Andrea Martin, who played Phil in this film.
Yeah, the only one to return.
Yeah. But Bob Clark was the executive producer on the remake.
Hidden Gem, Dan.
Hidden Gem. Ooh, that's a good question. That is a good question. Could I say just the attic? Because I think that is such a creepy place to be. Just the idea that this body is hanging out there. One in the chair and one hanging from a hook. But when he goes completely mental and he's breaking everything, and there's that terrifying rocking horse in there, and the cobblers are all going. I just think you can really feel the cold of a Canadian winter at that exact moment. Is just very, very atmospheric to me. It's I always think about that attic, and I just think, no, that's right. Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, no one's cleaned that in years.
Yeah.
You mentioned mine, and it was James Edmond, Mr. Harrison, and Claire's dad. I think he's just a good bit of humor, and it's very brief, but him disapproving of everything around the corner. This is not a funny film. It's not meant to be funny, but between him and Margot Kidder, they give you a nice relief from some of the tension and some of the terrible things that we're about to witness later. So I appreciate that.
He really moves the things along.
Yeah,
he does, and he does a brilliant bit of acting when they've gone on a search for that dead girl in the park, and they find a body, and he runs over thinking it might be Claire, and you see that in that moment in his eyes, you see that look of horror that he's looking at the body of a 13-year-old girl, but you can also see that slight flicker of relief that it's not his girl in front of him. And then he turns, and then that other mother comes in, and he immediately goes to console her. I think it's a brilliant moment of subtle terror and relief in one single moment, really.
100%.
I had said the posters. We've already talked about them more than once, so I'm going to go a different direction. There are a number of female characters who are not the main ones we've been talking about here, that are just people who are working on the set in order to keep costs down, and because they had to be resourceful. A lot of these female characters were just people who were working there. So like the costume department person would be one of the sorority sisters. By the way, they're all too old anyway. But I mean, each of these pieces and characters that don't necessarily have a lot of speaking lines, they're people who made the movie. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see more of this,
Absolutely.
in fact.
We didn't mention it, but they actually had to supply their own wardrobe. A lot of the more minor characters, they didn't have the budget for it. So it was just bring whatever clothes you have. That's your wardrobe.
We really didn't talk about how resourceful this movie had to be. So another credit to, the direction and the production team and everything. To do this.
Jamie Lee Curtis had to purchase her own wardrobe for Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Barb Clark, I think, said that, at this point it was really hard to get a movie made and directing gig, and it was either going to adult films or horror. And so,
and in the 70s, it can be both.
Well, he didn't want
With
to do adult
Porky's,
films,
he sort of did both, didn't he?
So this is how he landed this gig. Just when you couldn't do anything else, this is something he could do with very little money. So
there you
go. And he did it well. So especially considering this wasn't like he wasn't driven to make this movie, it wasn't something he'd been thinking about for years. So recast, if you had to recast somebody and put something in place, we've talked a lot about this being a good cast.
Yeah.
But who would you replace, Dan?
See, you've said about Betty Davis as Mr. McHenry, and that is such a good idea. I can't get past that.
It is hard.
That is such a good idea. I love Marian Waldman, who plays Mrs. McHenry. I think she's hilarious. But yeah, Betty Davis. Yeah, okay. That would definitely be it for me. Sorry to
it's hard to
piggyback on your idea, but that was genius.
Chet?
She would be fantastic. So this might be blasphemy, but I am going after Olivia Hussey, and
wow,
I just find her accent really distracting. She's English,
too high class.
She's English Argentinian, and I think she would be a wonderful Bond girl. Like she has that type of Bond girl type accent.
Too exotic.
But I don't want to use that phrase. But she doesn't fit here. She doesn't fit in as like this lead character in this sorority house when everybody else sounds American. They're not using Canadian words. You never hear anyone say oot or anything like that.
Oh, you do. You absolutely do. When the guy he goes into when Phil's partner Chris goes into the police station, Nash, you've got a big mouth, and he says, do you know Claire Housen? Yeah, I've been taking her out. It's like okay, yeah, this is Canadian.
That's true. I'd forgotten about that, but I'm going to make Russell happy. I'm going to win him back. So I'm putting Karen Allen because she's about the same age in this time period. I think she can convey innocence, but she can also convey, I'm going to fight back. So Karen Allen for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I win Russell over just by saying, Indiana Jones, here's something from your childhood you love. I could have said Michael Keaton. You would have been confused, but you would have been fine.
I'd like Karen Allen. That's true.
Yep.
But recast, if I had to recast somebody, I'm coming after John Saxon. Sorry.
That's fair.
And his eyebrow game is strong. And while the eyebrows won't be as good, I'm going Edward Woodward from Wicker Man.
Oh.
Okay. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's creepy.
Well, I don't need him to be creepy. I just feel like I don't know. Wicker Man, we just saw him solving a mystery. So
yeah, but
I think he's good at it.
To his own
Is he
cost.
good at it? Is he good at it?
Well,
I mean,
I'm having him come back, and I'm having him be the lieutenant here.
Okay, so giving him a second chance.
Give him a second chance.
Yeah.
After being burned alive.
Well, this guy's not successful either, for the record.
No, he's not.
So, best shot. If you had to pick one, I think you may have teased this earlier.
Best shot. There were two. There's the scene where she's being stabbed with the glass unicorn, and it looks for two minutes like it's become a Dario Argento movie. I think it's beautiful. But there's also a moment after Phil has been killed, and the phone call happens again, and Jess picks up the phone, and the way the cinematographer uses the banister of the stairs with Jess walking behind using the foreground of the banisters and Jess in the background, it gives her this sense of almost like being in a prison, like being completely trapped. And it's a completely, I'm sure that's completely accidental, but it's just a really effective way of showing just how isolated Jess is at that moment. So it's a toss-up between those two. But when I think of Black Christmas, a shot, it would be that shot of the glass swans breaking as Margot Kidder's bloodied hand comes down and falls out of shot.
See, I'm going to take part of that scene, but there's a skull in the back. And again, you are absolutely right. It goes straight to giallo territory, where you see the arm lift and it exposes the skull underneath of it. And it's just right in that background. So I love that shot. You hadn't noticed a skull on a mantle or whatever it is in the background until you get to that scene. So very artistic.
3 for 3. I like the stark black background with the high lighting contrast, like it's like the hand, the zoomed in. We don't see Billy, and then we like it's not like Michael Myers where we have like this is a large imposing person, like it's this shadowy figure the whole time. So how do you get maximum delivery out of that? This is by far the best kill scene. It's zoomed in, and it's really good in slow motion. The music's playing well.
And then it's followed up by the most terrifying shot in the entire film of his eye in the crack of the door. And it's completely blood red. And he's just going, "It's me, Billy." And it's just brilliant. Brilliant. That entire sequence is genius.
Love it.
All right. Best scene. I think you might be. Are you going 2 for 2 on this one?
Yeah, I'm going 2 for 2 because of the contrast between what's happening to Barb, the way it's being shot like a giallo film, the choir downstairs singing "Oh Come All Ye Faithful," this lovely Christmas carol. I just think the counterpoint between the image and the sound is, and there's a weird kind of Foley effect of like a it's almost like a metal like sound that comes on when the glass unicorn horns coming down. It's almost like she's being stabbed with a knife or a sword rather than something glass, and it just adds to this sense that the sharpness of the glass and the just all of it all together is just absolutely brilliant. It's genius, as I've said.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. What does it for me is how excitedly Jess claps at the end of the carol, but it's right at the end of Barb dying. So we get that immediate cut. And it's just this excited clap, and it's exactly how I feel.
Yep.
It's a terrible, terrible thing that we just witnessed, and she has no idea. But kudos, bravo, well done. Russell's now looking up giallo.
I've heard it mentioned. I don't think you're gonna have to school me more on this one because that's my favorite scene. So I'm just I think I've seen Suspiria, and I think it's the only thing that fits. I think it's the only thing that fits that mold that I have seen for sure.
You could see Deep Red.
I was going to say Deep Red, Bird of the Crystal Plumage. So giallo was a genre of Italian cinema in the 1960s and 70s, which was basically murder mysteries, usually black gloved killers going out killing women in the middle of the night. It didn't really come into horror until Dario Argento got his hands with it with things like Deep Red and Suspiria, Phenomena, films like that. And Black Christmas is very much like that, especially the color of the blood, which is very not authentic colored blood, but that very like day-glow red blood combined with the blackness of the background, that's very giallo. That's giallo iconography.
It's something I think I don't particularly get along with giallo films, but I do think it's something over the years that I've recommended to you, Russell.
I need to see it.
Because you are a huge fan of Suspiria. You are far more entertained by... They're very artistic.
They're so stylish. Suspiria is really stylish.
And
I love it.
And there are unique camera shots and things like that. And there, to Dan's point, there's a police investigation is almost always at the center of it. Like it's a mystery more than...
Yeah.
I like that about this movie.
Yeah, so...
Another one I would recommend is Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace from 1966, 1967, I think. And that is about murders taking place around a Italian fashion show. And the killer has a completely white mask, which is... I think it's a bit of a prototype for Michael Myers, to be honest. But that's a very, very... That's classic giallo as well.
Well, you guys have to take me more down this path because, again, when I look at a top 100 horror movies list, I don't see hardly any of these movies mentioned on this list, and I think I'm a basic horror fan. But yeah.
So I get along with Bava a little bit more than I do with Dario or Argento.
I understand that. I completely understand that.
My best scene is actually the scene wise. I'm going to go with the basement scene. Again, I mentioned I didn't think that. I thought we might have two bad guys at once. You know, I'm coming to kill you, but the other guy might kill you as you're kind of coming. Like the whole the T-Rex eats the raptors in Jurassic Park kind of thing was where I thought we might be headed.
Okay, that's not a comparison I expected. Sure.
Well,
I kind of like that though. I wouldn't mind a second killer here.
yeah, but it didn't give me what I was thinking in my head, and I like that. I like the misdirection. So,
Yeah.
if anything, I was tense. It was tense and suspenseful, and the lighting down there was excellent. And if the attic wasn't creepy enough, then the basement's only going to be creepier. The only thing creepier than attics are basements.
There's that shot where Peter's leaning against the glass window, and it's all frosted up, and he's just the silhouette, like completely black silhouette against the frosted window, and that's a very, very creepy shot.
You know you're at the end of the movie too, so it's just the climax.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah.
And they cut away because you don't even see what happens, and then the cops come around the corner, and you see them just lying in the corner together.
Yeah.
You think she's dead at first. You think she's died along with Peter.
I did. That was the other thing. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's fascinating because it's been 20 years, so I'm more to the point of just get it over. But you didn't know what happened, so that's unique.
Yeah,
I like hearing that.
So, best wardrobe or makeup moment. Again, they had to bring a lot of the wardrobe from home, and this was not a high production film, but it's still ultra 70s. So, Dan,
Yes, it is.
Get out your disco ball and your platform shoes. Where is your wardrobe moment of the night here?
It has to be that hideous dress that the girls buy for Mrs. McHenry that she says she wouldn't wear to have her liver out. That is, where the hell did they find that? That is AI generated to be hideous.
Yeah, that's some thrift store hunting. I'm
absolutely.
sure.
Macklemore would be proud.
There you go.
Jack, how about you?
I'm tempted to go with Jess's yellow outfit because I feel like that's what everyone remembers. But I'm going to call out one of the party goers, one of the male party goers in the beginning. There's this dude with this giant afro. He's got a 70s stash and just huge aviator glasses paired with a sweater.
Santa. The guy's the foul-mouthed Santa afterwards.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's
you're right. I didn't
Phil's
put
partner,
that together.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together, but if you ask somebody to make a parody of what the 70s were, they would dress like that guy, and he did it intentionally.
Well, I'm going to go with the choker necklace that Margot Kidder has.
Okay.
In the beginning, it just I don't know, just caught my eye. So
it says the word "yes" on it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's very
very like a little metal, like a metal. Again, she's a very confident lady. So.
This is a child of the 90s with chokers, calling out chokers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she doesn't get strangled. That's not foreshadowing. I actually thought that was another thing that could be. It's like choker necklace. She might get strangled later.
Huh.
This movie didn't deliver what I was thinking there either. So, I mean,
that's a miss. Well, no, it's not because
it's a good kill scene.
The world's strongest crystal unicorn. Like that thing had to be solid diamond.
I think you could kill somebody with a paperweight.
It's not going to last that long. Like that horn is breaking off if it's going through human skin.
Mythbusters team, get on this.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna stab Buster the ballistics gel dummy.
Exactly. You have to make. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't suggest stabbing a real person. They do pigs or ballistic gel.
There you go.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes, they did do the Die Hard myth, and the sound they made going through the air ducts, it was just horrendous. They're like, there's absolutely no way you can sneak around here. It was clang, clang, clang.
Dan, it's a top 5 movie for you, but I'm going to make you do it anyway. Change one thing.
Change one thing about Black Christmas. Oh, God, that's really tough. That is really tough because it is genuinely one of my favorite films. And with every watch, I just find something else to love about it. Maybe I would tone down some of the humor. There's a bit where I think it's just after Barb's been murdered, and it cuts to the police station, and a police officer comes in because someone shot him in the arse. Yeah. And I just think it's completely unnecessary because we know that the one guy finds everything hilarious because he laughs at the fellatio joke and everything. And then we just see another scene of him laughing with John Saxon. And I've always thought that scene was a bit incongruous. That just takes away from the terror of what's happening over at the sorority house. Sort of cuts the tension, really. But besides that, and that's maybe because I just think Black Christmas is a film that doesn't really need humor. But yeah, probably that scene I would leave that on the cutting room floor, and maybe just have more scenes of Jesse looking absolutely terrified in the sorority house.
Nice. Chad.
I have an appalling number of cats that has somehow increased this year because we found a stray and nursed him back to health, and now just we keep accruing cats, and it's a problem. So give me shots of Claude, more shots of Claude, and also I have a huge problem with this. They're threatening to they're threatening to neuter Claude, who is an indoor cat. Why isn't this indoor cat already neutered?
No, it was already
Bob
spayed.
Barker,
I was going to say.
Yeah. Bob Barker warned us about this. Spay and neuter your pets, people.
I love this. This is one of my favorite Change One things.
Neuter the cat.
Neuter the cat and show more shots of him
Cat
looking in
tangent.
pain.
Really good job. All right.
I am subverting expectations just like this film did for you.
I'm going to go with so Billy, first, they dig too deep into the first person camera work, I think. And then granted, they need to be resourceful, but what I want to see are some silhouettes. I want to see from behind. And I this is not taking away when I say John Carpenter did it better, but, having a dark room with a shadowy figure, sometimes if you just see the back of their head, or maybe then you can get the zoom shots. Maybe they're headed to the attic. So because if you start from back here, you can tell where they're going. You can build suspense through that. Over the shoulder shots are also really, you can mix it up just a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm all on board with not showing, the guy's face full on and in broad daylight or really well illuminated scenes. I just think that there's more diversity that you can use to build some suspense with panning, zooming, and lighting.
I do think you need to go watch it again because Dan's mentioned a couple of times you'll start seeing things in the background that you didn't before that might help you here, but I'm all for more of that.
I think when Michael Myers walks slowly towards somebody he's intending to kill, that's incredibly powerful.
Yes.
And he is a large, imposing man, whereas I'm not sure that this guy, I don't know. I have no clue. I think maybe that's part of my issue. Maybe I might be a little more afraid of him if I know he's like a noticeable physical match for anybody in this house.
Couldn't break down a basement door.
He couldn't break down a basement door, but he has to pick on the girls when they're on their own. He has to do it, like a solitary animal. And
exactly.
I think that
Steve
makes him.
Buscemi's creepy, but
He's
like,
very creepy.
I think if he's your serial killer, I mean, you feel like you might be able to win if you have like a good implement of destruction to go up against him. I mean, it's nice to know when that person coming after you is like, nope, I'm just gonna like Michael Myers like picks like the boyfriend up on the knife and like lifts him up the wall and then impales him. Like he's physically a match for most people, and that's good.
I don't get the impression that Billy is that, though. I think he's much more hyenas are pack animals, but he's like a solitary, weak hyena that has to kill these girls when they've got their backs turned or when they're asleep. And even with that basement door, he's screaming and wailing just this unnatural, animalistic cry, but he can't break it down. There's no instrument or anything. He's not using a knife. I guess he uses a knife for the cop that's killed, has his throat slashed. We don't actually see how he dies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he doesn't have a tool or anything. I just take away the impression that this is a weak guy.
It could be. And to my point, like, I don't think I want to be that weak, which is possibly another part. Again, when I say John Carpenter did it better, that is not like the most, condemning thing to say.
You want the sleeping bag kill from Friday the 13th, where he's slamming him.
It's weird when I was watching the film yesterday, and I'd never drawn this comparison before, but watching Billy stalking around, kill someone, then come back up, putting the loft hatch back on, it reminded me of a trapdoor spider. Just lying in wait, waiting for something to come too close to him, take the moment to pounce, and then come back in, close the lid, and then nothing, you wouldn't know that anything had happened if you just stumbled on that scene.
He's like Gollum to me from Lord of the Rings.
That would be much less creepy phone calls, though.
Yeah.
I want to lick it. Lick it. There's no.
Very good Gollum.
That is very good, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, gosh, now I won't be able to stop imagining. inappropriate calls from Gollum.
Brett's potato spread.
Don't tell them what's with it, Agnes.
Oh man, best quote. If you had to pick a best quote, Dan.
Best quote. Probably, I wouldn't wear this to have my liver out. That's
Okay.
such a good damning criticism of a piece of clothing you've just been given for Christmas.
All right, Chad, how about you? Best quote.
Could that really be just one person? No, Claire, it's the Mormon Tabernacle Choir making their annual obscene phone call.
That was good.
Love that.
I might have picked that if I had thought about. I somehow didn't write that one down at the moment. That is good. I'm going to go the dramatic route. This movie seems like it's not even from a horror movie. It feels like it's from a drama. When Jess says, "Do you remember when we first met? You told me you wanting to be a concert pianist. How it was your greatest dream, and how I told you I wanted some things that I wanted to do. I still want to do those things, and you can't ask me to drop everything I've been working on to give up my ambitions because of your plans have changed. Be realistic. I can't marry you." I was like, man. Again, another one of those little moments like, what movie are we in? That's really good stuff. Like I'm feeling things I didn't expect to feel. Exactly.
Right. These aren't typical horror movie vibes.
I was like, yeah, exactly. I was not expecting that. So, but if you wanted to go with the fun one, I also like Barb doing like the, come on, I know a professional version when I see one.
I know. So like, this is a sorority house, not a convent. That's a good line.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we've come full circle, and then on a 5-star scale with half-star intervals, I think I know where this is going. But
yeah, this is a 5-star film for me. I love it. And to be fair, if it could be Elvis Presley's favorite film as well, that can't be a bad thing, because he watched this every Christmas with his family, and now the Presleys do that as a tradition every year as well.
But he only got 2 years of doing that.
I was gonna say he didn't live much longer after this.
He must have watched it a lot.
For Russell, Steve Martin.
Yeah. I was going to say Steve Martin loves this film as well.
He went up to Olivia Hussey and said, "You were in one of my favorite films. I've watched it like 27 times." She's like, "Oh, Romeo and Juliet." And he goes, "No,
Black Christmas."
Steve Martin doesn't seem like a Romeo and Juliet kind of guy, so
He doesn't strike me as a Black Christmas kind of guy either, but I love that he loves this.
That's what he was doing on the plane in Planes, Trains and Automobiles, just watching Black Christmas on the back of a TV.
Well, I'm sticking with 3.5, and it's a beloved 3.5. It's actually, again, back-to-back 3.5 for Canadian horror films. Gave the same to The Changeling. It's a trailblazer. It deserves its cult status. It deserves all the credit and some of the credit it's not getting. But for me, it's tough when everything it inspires does it better.
I get that.
I'm stuck. So this is rated as the #1 Canadian horror film in a lot of lists. For me, that's Ginger Snaps. I think Ginger Snaps is the best Canadian horror film. I'm definitely not giving it to Videodrome.
I was going to say, I'm surprised that Cronenberg didn't get that, actually, for best Canadian.
I'm not a big body horror fan, although I really did love The Substance. The Substance was great.
The Brood was really good.
I haven't seen The Substance yet.
Oh, go see it. Go see it right now.
I will.
And is The Brood Canadian?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's really good, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is. Go see Ginger Snaps. It's great. It's the best.
It might show you a little too much at the very end, but still, I don't know. I like mystery component to it. Anyway, all right, Chad. I'm going to join you though. It's a 3.5 for a lot of the same reasons that you said. I really appreciate this movie. I had to study it to gain the full appreciation for it. Where it places in history in 1974 is a big part of where I came out as with way more respect. And I got to give the writing a lot of credit, because I will belittle a lot of movies and hit them with like a 1.5 to 2 stars and just say, there's not much here. There's dumb teenagers and they're getting sliced up. So,
my favorite.
Well, I don't always feel the same way about that as a general template for a movie.
I'm with you there.
I want some more substance in this movie. Delivered that, and I won't fault it at all. And so to some degree, they had almost no money. And even as I'm saying this kind of even sounds like I should probably bump it up to a 4. But maybe with time I will. But I think you nailed it. Like When a Stranger Calls is better, or like when Halloween comes is better, or like there's these things that everything that it influences takes what it does better. And I don't think necessarily having it Christmas necessarily was subverting Christmas didn't do it for me either, to put it over the top. So, and I think you may have spoiled it for me when I even said like, so is this the first one that ever did that? And you said, no, there was that Silent Night, Bloody Night. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, it's important, and it's an important stepping stone in the progression of horror movies, and I'm not going to take that away from it either. So
this is akin to Blair Witch, though. Blair Witch wasn't the first found footage. That's Cannibal Holocaust, but it's the one that popularizes it. So this isn't the first Christmas horror, but it's definitely the one that kicks off the craze. So
certainly the seasonal slashers as well. Certainly the first seasonal slasher. I mean, absolutely. Silent Night, Bloody Night is more of a psychological thriller than an out-and-out horror film, to be honest.
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah, Black Christmas is it's certainly not the first. I mean, you could go all the way back to the 1940s and 50s to try and find the origins of the slasher movie. Like House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price is technically a slasher movie. It's a body count film where people are going around being picked off one by one by a mysterious killer.
I've seen it, but I hadn't considered one until now.
Buckets of blood.
Bucket of blood, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some of those old Corman films.
Pick it.
We should have. I love that movie.
Bucket of blood.
You're gonna be really mad then because it was Buckaroo Banzai and
that's one of my least favorite movies we've ever covered.
But I do think it does deserve more credit for what it does. You asked me about my rating, and I've been thinking about this. Maybe I am being a bit too hyperbolic because it is one of my favorite films. So I'm automatically going to give it. I think I'm going to give it 5 stars. I am going to drop it down to 4, and that's not because I don't think it any less of it. But when I do think of genuinely perfect films, this probably isn't in there. Jaws, It's a Wonderful Life, Wizard of Oz, they're perfect films. This is just a really good film that is one of my personal favorites.
You're allowed to elevate your rating because you love it. I do it all the time.
I have 5 stars where I say, please don't listen to me. This is my personal 5-star. I understand Rat Race isn't a perfect film. It makes me happy.
Oh, Chad gets off the air all the time and says, stop giving everything 5 stars. So I mean,
that's true. Russell.
You gave Rat Race 5 stars.
I did.
I'm weaning.
I quote it too much. It is part of me now.
So. Sorry to go off on a tangent. What's your favorite quote from Rat Race?
I probably do quote, "It's a race. I'm winning."
I also get
several times a day.
And again, it's maybe architecture. Remember, look at this room. Have you seen this room? This room. Yes,
we're in it.
We're in it.
Yeah. Every time I get lost, I say we're gonna run into signs of "should have bought a squirrel," things like that. Or
Kathy Bates is so funny in that film.
I've described myself as the same as the butler, someone who was unfortunately born without a personality.
If you want 90 minutes of Chad and I loving that movie, it's early. It's like probably like first 30 episodes or something like that.
Oh, you did an episode of Rat Race.
Uh-huh.
Well, I know what I'm listening to tonight.
There you go.
You got to go way back there in the early part of the show.
The archives.
Yeah.
It's just us laughing and quoting for like 90 minutes, but
it's literally, I don't want to spoil the whole thing. I've never laughed that hard.
Yeah.
And when the radio control tower was happening.
Yeah.
I was in the theater. Everybody was laughing. My sides hurt. Like I couldn't, there was no relief.
Yes.
Anyway, I hope I laugh that hard again someday.
Well, maybe for our next Christmas movie.
All right. So, but Chad, we got to pick a movie for next time. Do you want to help me?
I sure do. So today we had a cold, dark Christmas movie. Let's warm things up a little more. Let's get cozy with some holiday cheer. This is a phrase I would actually say, and Russell certainly has not written it and forced me to read it.
I'm now realizing I should be reading this, but you should just keep going.
It's fine. It's fine because we've learned that Russell has trouble when reading from a script. So I've been given this. I will spread the Christmas cheer. So option number 1, Russell, would you like to watch Christmas in Connecticut from 1945? A food writer who has lied about being the perfect housewife must try to cover her deception when her boss and a returning war hero invite themselves to her home for a traditional family Christmas. Option 2, Miracle on 34th Street from 1947. After a divorced New York mother hires a nice old man to play Santa Claus at Macy's, she is startled by his claim to be the genuine article. When his sanity is questioned, a lawyer defends him in court by arguing that he's not mistaken. Or option 3, White Christmas from 1954. A successful song and dance team become romantically involved with a sister act and team up to save the failing Vermont Inn of their former commanding general.
This is the Christmas spirit I needed, so thank you for starters.
And then
secondarily, you can't be on any of these, right?
I actually kind of wish I was.
And then
I have been banned from most versions of Christmas episodes. I got Gremlins, and now I got Black Christmas.
yeah,
This is my thing.
I think you did Muppet Christmas Carol too.
Why have you
I
been
did.
banned?
I did. That would be Russell. Russell.
He's a humbug.
Yeah. I
Oh.
don't like Christmas movies, and we try and avoid people who do not like the genre.
Yeah, I do. I try and keep bad ratings.
I think those episodes are very fun when we all have to panic and look at each other, and it's like, oh, we're about to go like straight twos. Those are fun episodes. Russell does not like those.
I hate those episodes.
He does.
But anyway, I want to see the one that I haven't seen. Third of all, though, with Christmas in Connecticut.
All right. There's a haunting in Connecticut, so why not a Christmas in Connecticut?
There you go. Dan, thank you so much. We always love having you on. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's always a absolute joy to do this. So thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely, and this is the kind of Christmas Chad needed. So thank you for
Absolutely.
delivering it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think his heart shrank
It-
2
it-
sizes in
it-
the time of the show.
It grew 3 sizes, yes.
No,
the-
it
the
shrank.
Grinch. Oh.
No, yours shrank just now.
Oh,
Like,
you mean reading that?
Oh.
Yeah, reading the Marian jolliness. Yes, my Grinch heart did reduce 3 sizes.
yes, that's what I was saying.
Call me
Okay.
Santa
Yeah.
Claus.
Put on Krampus, and then we'll be happy.
There you
In
go.
all seriousness, Merry Christmas to everybody. I love this time of year, and I hope that you and your family enjoys it. And thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable, for enjoying the show. Reach out to us, subscribe, rate, and review our show. We want to hear from you, so give us a like on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @movie_retro, email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free, so we invite you to support the show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Retro Movie Roundtable. All contributions are much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Chad?
In honor of Tony Todd, rest in peace, I am the writing on the wall, the whisper in the classroom. Without these things, I am nothing. So now I must shed innocent blood. Come with me.
Merry Christmas.